Last week we talked about sour apples. A lot of people watched that video on sour apples, and I am happy to report that after all those people watched that video and thought about getting their own way, that this last week in all their churches, they all stopped trying to get their own way. They all stopped pushing their own agenda. They all stopped trying to get things the way they think they ought to be. And an amazing outbreak of peace and harmony spread through a bunch of churches this last week since people watched that video. Or maybe not. The truth is, watching that video or talking about getting our own way, it's fun to amen something like that. But right here, we have a willow tree that we cut down a couple years ago. And you can barely see the stump because it is covered in new growth. And there's new branches and new leaves and new shoots all the way around it. Because we left that stump there, even though we cut down a big tree. We cut down a lot. There's a lot of wood came out of that. But it's growing back. And that's the thing with our will and our pride. It's all well and good to say, oh yes, we need to die to self. We need to not have our own way. Until something comes up and you want your own way. And then it's not so cool anymore. Then it's, no, that's not how we want to do it. Because you don't understand, I'm right. And this is how it ought to be. And this is a great idea and I should do it. And we're right back to sour apples. Even when we say, well, I'm going to die to self, I'm going to cut all that down, without even noticing, it's going to all grow right back and grow back fast. Conflict is not merely a result of us trying to have our own way, it's also an opportunity. We're going to talk about that on Sunday. Conflict tells us something's going wrong. If you find yourself in a conflict, of course, the first thing you're going to want to do is be able to explain why it's somebody else's fault. But as I explained to two of my own children this week, conflict, the first part of the word, con, means with. You can't do it alone. You have to have a second person. And so if you're in a conflict, you're part of it. And that should give you a warning of, gee, maybe even though I want to think I'm all sweet and not sour, I want to think that I cut down my tree of selfishness, maybe the fact that I'm finding myself conflicting with someone else, even though I want to blame them, maybe my selfishness is growing back. Maybe I am trying to get my own way. Maybe the fact that I'm in conflict this is a warning to tell me that I'm pushing for me because I'm sure I'm right or I know how it ought to be. And so then the conflict becomes an opportunity to examine yourself and say, well, wait a minute, am I dying to self? The fact that I'm in a conflict, what is it telling me? Not just, what is it telling that other person? They're wrong. What does it mean for me? Because maybe you thought you cut down your selfishness. Maybe you said, oh, I'm ready to be a servant. I'm ready to not have my own way. And yet your stump is sprouting new areas of selfishness, new areas of self-will, new ways to get your way. There's a lot more to it, and I'm looking forward to on Sunday exploring the silver lining of conflict. Because when we find ourselves in conflict, it gives us some neat opportunities to look within, to die to self, to realize perhaps whatever anybody else's choices are, perhaps we need to do some more cutting and dying in ourselves.